When you watch a lot of players on the field, you often see kids who are just kicking the ball away when it comes to them. They're not really trying to use their skill or do things that are purposeful on the ball, which is exactly the opposite of things we want to see kids do when they play. Ironically, often this is a fear of losing the ball. When I tell kids, it's ironic because you're afraid to lose the ball, so you kick the ball away, which means you usually will lose the ball by kicking it away. It's sort of like being afraid to stub your toe and kicking a wall with your bare foot. It's a fear I talk with players a lot about. But another thing that is critical for players to understand and something you should talk to your players about is how it just doesn't make sense based on what the players do every week throughout the season. When I talk to players, I tell them to think about it. How many hours do you spend each week? How many practice sessions have you attended working on your ability to control the ball, improving your skills, improving your confidence? You spend so much time and energy improving your ability with the ball, but then you get into the game and you start playing and you don't use it. Think about how kind of crazy that is. You're spending all that time, all that energy, all that commitment, and when it comes time to using the skills you're developing, you don't use them. It's the same as, staying up and studying hard for a test, and you get to the school the next day, and when the teacher gives you the test, you just crumple up the paper and throw it away. And I tell players that it makes sense. They're like, yeah, that would never do that. If I studied and worked hard, I'd want to take the test and get a good grade. And it's the same thing when they step on the field. They spend all this time and energy working on their ability with the ball, and then when they get the opportunity to use it, they choose not to. This is a message I try to send to players I work with constantly, and it's a good message for all players to know and understand, is that that's the idea of practice. We don't practice to get better at practicing. We're practicing to develop these skills to use them in the game. If we get to the game and don't use them, then the practice just doesn't make sense. You can pull anybody onto the field and have them just kick the ball really hard. But to really be able to use those skills that take years and countless hours and so many practices and sweat and hard work and frustration to develop, to not use them again on the field is just unfair to yourself. So, when you see players doing that, make sure you send them that message that, they've earned the right through their hard work and training to use these skills and try to use them on the field. They'll lose the ball at times, it might not work out, but they've earned the opportunity to try. That's the key part, is that you're developing those skills to try to use them in the game. You're never going to step on the field and be perfect. You're never not going to lose the ball. So that fear just needs to be thrown out. All right. So again, those two things, when you see players do so much where they just kick the ball away because they're afraid to lose the ball, and they lose it anyway. And then they refuse to use the skills they are learning every day at training because they're afraid to use the ball. It's just unfair to themselves for all the time they put into it. There's no need to practice if you're not going to step on the field and try to use the skills you're developing. So players really have to understand that, and it's up to coaches, adults, parents to make sure that kids have the green light to use those skills and what they're learning and training in the game. If they're not getting that green light, then practice and all that time becomes somewhat useless and not necessary. And you're going to get players who become very frustrated and not want to train, because really then what's the point? Why am I practicing? Why am I trying to learn these skills if I step on the field and I'm never going to use them?